After drafting future number 1 center Jonathan Toews with the 3rd overall pick in 2006, in 2007, the Chicago Blackhawks would select another young man, this time with the 1st overall pick, who would end up helping to lead the team to multiple Stanley Cups, rack up numerous individual awards, and become one of, if not the best American-born players of all time. Patrick Kane helped Chicago become a modern-day dynasty in the 2010s and scored some of the biggest and most clutch goals the NHL has ever seen, very much living up to his well-known nickname of Showtime. Kane also had some of the silkiest mitts of all time and has scored more than a few filthy goals during his career. Growing up in Buffalo, New York, his dad got him into hockey at 6 years old, and even said that when he was age 12, he played over 300 games in a single year. All those games and all that repetition could be a major reason why Kane has some of the best puck skills of any player in the game's history. Kane was always also really close with his family, which made it especially difficult when he left home at just 13 years old to go and live with former NHLer Pat Verbeek and his family to further his hockey career. This would help Kane play against better competition and also helped him learn about the work ethic it takes to become an NHL player. He would then play with the U.S. national team for a few seasons, becoming one of the most highly touted American prospects in quite some time. And while most American-born players go down the NCAA route and play college hockey, Kane decided it would be best for his development to go play in the Ontario Hockey League for the London Knights, one of the CHL's most storied franchises. Kane would excel right from the start, putting up a ridiculous 62 goals and 83 assists for 145 points in 58 games, good for a 2.50 point per game average in his draft year, leading all players in points and points per game. And it became clear that he would be the slam dunk first pick in the 2007 entry draft. Despite his smaller stature, Kane proved that he had the skills, speed, playmaking, and scoring ability to succeed in the NHL right off the jump. He would lead the Blackhawks in points his rookie year with 72, and this also led all rookies and was good enough for him to take home the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year. The next season, Kane and the Hawks got their first taste of playoff action with the Young Guns, beating Calgary and Vancouver in the first and second rounds before being taken down by the defending champion Detroit Red Wings in the conference finals. Kane had a very impressive first playoff appearance, scoring 9 goals and 14 points in 16 games. The team clearly had a great young core of players with Kane and Toews up front, as well as defensemen Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook, and forwards Patrick Sharp and Chris Versteeg. They were also able to sign Marian Hossa in the offseason, who was an unreal get coming off of multiple trips to the Cup final. Andrew Ladd, Brian Campbell, and Dustin Byfuglien were also huge contributors on that 2009-10 team that would go on to win the Stanley Cup, their first since 1961. Toews and Kane were second and third in NHL playoff scoring that year, and Patrick Kane had one of his signature goals, scoring in overtime in Game 6 against Philadelphia, when almost no one but him realized it went in for the first few seconds. Unfortunately, after this year, the Hawks had to part ways with a few of their solid role players, which led to them getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs each of the next 2 seasons. When the NHL finally agreed to a shortened 48-game season in 2012-13, the Chicago Blackhawks showed they were more than ready to have a great year. They even started the year with a 17-game unbeaten streak, which broke an NHL record, and that they took all the way to 24 games. They'd end the year with a 36-7-5 record and rode the hot start all the way through the playoffs, taking down Minnesota, then Detroit in the second round, a tough series against LA in the conference finals, and finally the Stanley Cup win against Boston to win the championship. Kane would lead the Blackhawks in scoring with 19 points and take home his first Conn Smythe Trophy for playoff MVP, thanks to his elite play and some of his clutch goals during the run. The next season, Kane and the Hawks had another strong year, and in the playoffs in the second round versus Minnesota, Showtime was born. In Game 1 in the third period, he'd score on a beautiful backhand rip top shelf and would clearly mouth Showtime to the home crowd, and the nickname has stuck with him ever since. Chicago will be taken down in Game 7 in the conference finals by the powerhouse and eventual Cup champ LA Kings, but the Blackhawks were certainly not finished with their run and would march right back to the Cup final the next season. Kane would especially torment the Minnesota Wild again in the round 2 sweep, but scored another one of his most famous and clutch goals in the cup-clinching Game 6, where he one-timed a beautiful Brad Richards pass into the net, which would turn out to be the dagger for Tampa Bay. Kane was tied for the league lead in playoff points, but the Conn Smythe would be awarded to defenseman Duncan Keith, who also had a stellar performance. While the Hawks couldn't quite recreate their magic the next year, Patrick Kane had his best season yet. It would make NHL history, becoming the first American-born player to win the Art Ross Trophy for league lead in points, and the Hart Trophy for NHL MVP. An extremely impressive feat considering all the great USA Hockey players that came before him. This was also the year when Chicago picked up stud Russian winger Artemi Panarin, aka the Breadman, and the two would develop immediate chemistry and produce absolute magic on the ice. For whatever reason, it just didn't work for the Hawks in the playoffs, and Chicago made a questionable move to trade Panarin to the Columbus Blue Jackets and would get back forward Brandon Saad. After that trade, the Blackhawks have since only made the playoffs once more, in 2019-20, when they were bounced in the first round in 5 to the Vegas Golden Knights. Kane has continued to produce like a star pretty much each year since then, and is now reunited with Artemi Panarin on the New York Rangers. So, will Showtime return to his old form in the playoffs this year with the Blue Shirts? I guess we'll have to see. Without a doubt, Kane is a hockey legend in the city of Chicago, and really in the United States as a whole. His sick set of hands and all the clutch goals he scored in his career have made him one of the most entertaining players to watch of his generation. And his clear impact on some of the younger players in USA Hockey, like Austin Matthews, Jack Hughes, and Trevor Zegras, will continue to show itself as the years go on.